Hi, everyone. Dale Pinkers here at TradeGateHub.com, and I am joined by Jason Shapiro. Jason, really, it's an honor to meet you. I've, talked to Jack Schwager many times, and you're one of his unknown wizards, and so that must have been to be recognized by Jack Schwager is an honor in the industry. Many people cut their teeth on his Wizard series, and let me ask you this: I believe you read his first book, and did you imagine one day it would be you that you could be written about by Jack Schwager when you were reading his first Market Wizards book?
That's sort of like when you're in your 20s and you're reading Market Wizards and you're trading, that's like, oh, the dream, right? I want to be a
Right.
market wizard one day. So, yeah, it was kind of
Okay.
funny.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about your journey, the long and winding road of a journey as a trader. Did you know early on, when you were, say, in college that you wanted to be involved in the markets, or what were you doing before your first entree into the business, and what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I went to business school, so, I was aware of Wall Street and the markets and all that. I didn't really, having been a kid, know what it was or what it meant other than, oh, it seemed like a place where people like make a lot of money or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and in college, I studied a lot about that stuff and read a lot of books and all that, started, I think where most people do, reading like Warren Buffett books and,
Yeah.
um, that kind of thing. And then my first job was with a commercial bank in Hong Kong.
Oh,
Um, and I started trading there mostly out of boredom. I was in this sort of executive development program type thing, suit and tie type of job. And it didn't really match my personality, but I had a friend who was a broker and he got me involved and I started trading. And like I say, the first trade I made, I went out to the bookstore and thought I should buy a book about this stuff. And the first book I bought was the first Market Wizards book.
yeah.
And I read it. And like you say, a lot of people were hit by that book. I was one of them.
Yeah. I know people reread it every year for inspiration.
Yeah, no,
And
I've probably read that book. I don't know how many times, 50 times.
okay, so you started trading, being at a bank. Was it FX, or were you
No, I was
interested in
like
the share markets
no,
in Hong Kong?
I was a commercial banker. It had nothing to do with any of that, but I was trading for myself and I was
Right.
trading Hang Seng Index futures.
Okay. Hang Seng with Nick Leeson.
Nick Leeson did Nikkei. Yeah.
Yeah, Nikkei. Yeah. So, all right. So you started off and you read Jack's book, and Jack has a story. He says, this is the only business people think that they can read a book over the weekend and that they're ready to be a trader. He compares it to reading about a book about brain surgery and then thinking you could go into the operating room on Monday. So tell us how long it really took you to get the hang of this and say, you know what, I really think that I'm consistent now, and I found my edge, and I really do believe that I can live off the market.
Have I gotten to that point yet? I'm not really
No, no.
sure.
How long? How long? Oh, I think you have.
I'm
In
still trying every day.
Okay,
I'm still trying, but every day, hopefully we get a little bit better. But, I don't really think I got to a point where I was like, I can. It was more like, this is what I'm going to do. And I better figure out how I'm going to do it. Otherwise,
okay,
it's going to be a long, poor life.
okay. Did you have any influences? Any besides Market Wizards? What is it that your approach is in the market? I know that you um, call yourself a contrarian. I mean, the name of your Twitter handle and your website speaks to, what you look for, crowded market report. So, that tells me that you fade sentiment, and sentiment's an important tool for you. How long did it take for you to, come to these conclusions that really the best trades were when people were all on one side of the boat.
You know, it developed over time. One of the first places that I worked at when I left banking and got into the markets was I worked in a sort of a retail brokerage place for about a year.
Okay.
And there was a guy there who was an older guy. And he used to sit there and fade all of us. You know, we were a bunch of 20 whatever year old kids. And all of a sudden, you know, whatever, the Hang Seng would be ripping higher and we'd all be lining up, buying it. And he would go in there and just sell it. And at the time we'd laugh at him, but it didn't take me long to understand that he was making money and we weren't. So, you know, it's pretty obvious, really, if a bunch of, you know, 20-something-year-old kids are all doing the same thing, it's a high probability that it's not going to work. So taking the other side is probably a high probability that it will work. And that's really what my whole thing is based on. I think a large percentage of people over time are going to lose money doing this. So if I can, you know, take the other side of those large percentage of people and capture the money they're losing as my gains, and that's really all I want to do. And when they're all acting in concert, I think it increases the odds that they're going to lose, you know.
Okay. And do you use certain gauges that tell you, or is it just what you hear through financial media, what you
It's
see
sort of a
on
combination.
Twitter?
It's sort of a combination. I use the commitments of traders report pretty extensively.
Okay, here it is.
Right.
So,
So
you know, I've been told that the way I used to use it was, you know, I would try and be on the same side as the commercials,
right.
because they were the ones that were right, and the small specs were usually the ones you wanted to be on the opposite side of.
That's right.
And
Yeah, particularly at major market turning
is
points.
it still that way, Jason? Because one thing I did learn is that they are early, and you know,
They're early.
they can afford to be early.
I think that's 100% right. You know, I
Okay,
don't just take a trade because the commitments of traders report is showing commercials are super long and the small specs are super short or something. At that point, I am waiting to make a trade.
right.
But I don't just do it immediately. I wait. It's just like any under indicator. To
You,
me, you have to wait for like the market to confirm first, and then you can go with it.
okay, so it's price action and technical action that gives you the signal, and things like COT give you the bias or the side of the market you want to take, which is
Correct.
the, you know, minority. You want to be in the
Correct.
minority.
That's right. So the
Okay,
COT kind of gives me the setup, and then the price action will give me the actual trade.
okay. So technical analysis, you know, many ways to skin a cat. Would you call yourself a classical technician, Elliottician, self-taught? Would you call yourself self-taught when it comes to TA?
I don't really do it based on technical analysis. I have read a lot of technical analysis book. I think I have a pretty good understanding of technical analysis, but I don't really use it for technical analysis, so to speak. I use it more, the way that I get confirmation is I let the market sort of give me what I like to call a news failure. You have that S&P chart up there,
Yeah,
which can give us the perfect example. If you look at the low day right there in October,
yeah,
that was the day that, and I was set up to buy, and I had been set up to buy for a few weeks there. But that was the day that CPI came out.
right.
That was the highest CPI print of the year. It was
Yep,
higher than expectations.
yep.
The market had been obviously driven, as it still is, by this whole inflation thing.
And that was
So,
also the peak in the 10-year. So you had the peak in the 10-year up
well,
there in
I
October.
wasn't even looking at that, to tell you the truth, but
All right. Well,
it's probably
anyway,
the
so
same signal. But
yeah,
um, you know, so that day you can see the S&P made new lows
right.
as it should have, right?
Yep.
News wise. And then it reversed and finished up on the day. So that's the market telling me now that the tape is good, right? So I
Okay.
get long on that day. I stop out if it takes out that new low. Since I'm picking a market turn, by definition, if it takes out that new low, then I didn't get the market turn. So I stop
Correct.
out there.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll ride it until the commitment of traders kind of goes neutral. And once it goes neutral, I'll get out.
Okay. Uh, I know I brought up Jack a few times. He was telling us a story about an unknown wizard. I'm wondering if it's you. I think it was towards the end of 2019. One of them, tell me if it's you, was bearish S&Ps, and you kept buying puts. This trader kept buying puts every month, wasn't you? And
Nope,
they
I don't.
kept
First of all,
no options.
I don't do options, and second of all, I don't keep doing something just because I'm bearish. I don't.
Okay, yeah,
I try to let the market tell me what to do. I try very hard to not have an opinion of what the market is going to do,
okay, all
because that
right.
has gotten me
Anyway,
into
I mean,
trouble in the past.
Jack wrote about him, so we must do something right. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I can't do it either. You know, he kept buying puts and they'd expire, you know, maybe a month. And then he did it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And Jack said, I say to Jack, I said, wow, I would have been really worn out by then. Probably would happen the cycle where I just decide that I'm exhausted and I'm not going to hit myself in the head with a ball peen hammer. But this guy did it, and he was, you know, scored on COVID. He was bearish before COVID going into that year. So, um, all right, let's get to some of the things that I've read off your Twitter stream. And why don't we start with your pinned tweet? And Jason Shapiro says there will be no recession because everyone is looking for a recession. And I'm going to give you a little break on it because I think it was a month ago. And back then, we weren't hearing no landing, Jason. So when I think about it being contrarian, it doesn't seem to be as contrarian where you have people talking about no landing, which is no recession. And that is out there. So is it as contrarian as it was then, even though that's being said, because people, as you say, are well under committed to the market and are not over committed to the market.
It's definitely not as contrarian as it was then. I was really pushing that back in, I would call it November and December.
Yeah.
And the idea was that all I heard from everybody was that the first half of this year was going to be bad for stocks because the recession was coming. And
Yeah.
the second half of the year was then going to be good as we started to discount the end of the recession.
Right.
And my view on that is if that's what everybody's saying, then the chances of that happening are pretty low. So I kind of back into, I'm not an economist, I back into the economics of it all, right? So
Okay.
if the market's not going to go down in the first half of the year was my thought, then there wasn't going to be or at least people were going to start to believe that maybe there wasn't going to be a recession, right? To justify
Okay.
why the market was going up, right? So it really starts with markets for me. All I care about is the markets. I get markets wrong all the time too, but I get the economics wrong all the time too. I mean, I came into, as an example, 2022, super bearish stocks for the first time in a very long time. And so what I was writing about the economics was I was like, look, the Fed's not even going to raise rates in 2022 because things are going to be so bad, they're not going to be able to do it. Well, that turned out to be completely wrong. They did raise rates quite a few times and pretty aggressively, but who cares? The important thing is I was right about the markets, which is what I trade. You know, I always say all these people want to focus on what the economy is going to do and what this is. I don't trade contracts on GDP growth, you know,
Right.
I trade contracts on the market. So, you know,
Okay.
I'll talk about the economics from a contrarian point of view, but just as a way to justify kind of really what I think the market is going to do, which is the important thing.
Okay, well, you know, I've had this trend line drawn for a while. It goes back to the January high. The whole cosmos is looking at this line, Jason.
Yes.
That was a breakout line, and here we are back here testing it. Looks like 3,900 is a very important battleground, according to my work. What are you seeing S&P wise in here?
Again, not being a technician, I am clearly aware of that trend line because everybody on the planet was, you're right, talking about it. I don't trade based off of those. I think to me, the market here clearly has now, this inflation thing has again taken over massively. The inflation numbers are coming out high again.
Yeah.
For me, until I do want to be long the stock market, until the market can shake off and inflate a higher inflation number.
Okay.
That's where I would be looking to get long. Other than that, I can't get short here because I think people are too bearish. So I can't be short. And that's not to say the market can't crash. It can. It just is going to crash without me, right? Which is fine. I trade 37 markets and I try to make money, you know, over time doing that. I miss moves in the markets all the time. Everybody loves to talk about the S&P, but I mean, cotton or soybeans is just as important to me as the S&P, right?
Okay,
So I
all
try to
right.
focus on where my process is lined up. So I'd be lined
Where's
up.
your conviction? I mean, you bring up beans, and you know, they've been under pressure too. I was looking for an important low in the beans, and it looks like they're vulnerable. Cotton, I'm not trading. A lot of interest in gold. Let me ask you where you're at on gold. I believe that, you know, eventually this pullback from 1960 is a break to buy. Um, you have any views on the precious metals or the dollar in here, which have put on at least counter trend moves? I'll
So I
pull
had a
back.
nice trade in gold. You can see the reversal day the first week in
Yeah,
February. I think it was the second day in February.
here.
I was set up to short gold. That was the reversal day on good news. I
Yeah.
shorted it there. I covered it last week. And now I'm sort of neutral gold here. So I don't have a
Okay.
big view on that. I think, and these things all end up tying in together. The big thing for me here is fixed income,
Okay.
which I'm looking to buy as a contrarian trade. Obviously, people are mega short here and getting shorter every day.
Do you do you use TLT as a proxy, or you trade the futures,
I
the
trade the
bonds and the
futures.
notes? Okay. All right.
But,
Because
I won't do it until we get some sort of, like I say, one of these news failures events. So maybe CPI comes out stronger and the bonds, end up closing up on that. I'll get long there. And then from there, you can kind of back into just about everything else, right? Like I wouldn't
okay.
be buying gold until bonds are done going down, right?
Right.
And arguably same thing with stocks, right? It'll all probably happen at the same time. So you can choose which asset you want to do. I like to choose the one that the COT shows people are most short.
Okay. And are they? Yeah. It's very crowded on the short side of 30-year and 10-year. Very
And
crowded.
5 year and 2 year.
Okay. So, do you think it's possible? A lot of people are probably looking for new lows, that this was the big, still this bottom's going to hold, this low's going to hold, and maybe we just, we're taking out this level now, but we put in a higher low. Maybe it's going to be the ISM this week, Jason.
Yeah, it could be any of these things. I don't know until the market, like I say, let the market tell me. I'm not
Right,
going to fight it. I don't sit here. I'm not going to buy bonds just because I think. You know what I mean?
right.
I think are probably two of the most dangerous words in this entire game, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
You
I
know
try
what you
not to
are?
think. I try to let these people. I try to let the market tell me what to do, right?
Well,
What this does a lot of is, I like to say with the commitments of traders, it keeps me out of trouble more than anything else, right? Staying out of trouble is a great thing
yeah,
because
and people ignore that because it doesn't show up on their P&L if they avoid being in bad positions.
that's exactly right. It does show up on your P&L as
If
not a
you do it,
loss, No,
if
but
you
it's
do it,
not a
it shows.
loss if you don't
Right,
do it, right? So
right.
having not a loss is just as important as having a gain, truthfully, right?
It is, maybe
But
more.
that's right. But you're right. It doesn't show up. I mean, we're all going to make sometimes and we're all going to lose sometimes. If you can have the times you lose and keep the times you make, then you're that much better off, right?
I have a tagline for your website.
Shoot.
People who buy headlines today sell newspapers tomorrow.
Nice.
You could have it.
I like it. Thank you.
All right, because after talking to you for, I don't know, 20 minutes, I know your style, and people that it's not anything you invented. It's like Solomon said, nothing new under the sun. People have been doing, buying the news, selling the fact forever, and taking out. Do you look for markets at times? My handle's Forex Stop Hunter. And when I was on the floor, Jason, I was a runner at first. And I noticed how the locals were very interested in orders that had STP after
Sure.
them.
Yeah,
And
you floor guys love doing that. That's
yeah,
an old
that's
trick.
how, yeah, they get long and bid into the buy stops and then use that liquidity to
Yeah,
take profits or reverse. So,
sure.
and there were actual roars on the floor, algos, we don't hear them make any noise like you did on the floor. But do you think stop hunts still happen? Um, and when it comes to stop losses, do you use them?
I do.
Stops?
I do.
Okay,
But like I say,
okay,
if you go back to the S&P chart, I'm to me, it's all about process, right? And all the
yeah,
trades you have to do for me in my process have to make sense according to the process. So if I'm picking a market turn, which is what I do, right?
yeah,
Then again, if it makes a new low, then by definition, I didn't get the
you're
market
wrong,
turn.
right?
So there's my stop. I'm not going to sit here and hope that I made you know what I mean? Like if it makes a new low and I'm long, I get out because it's not
Yeah,
the market turn. And that's what I'm trying to do is pick a market turn. So that's where my stop is. And it
okay,
shouldn't be, too vulnerable to stop hunters because it's not like an intraday thing. And it's a new all-time low close.
okay. Well, I
So,
mean, there were a couple of tops here. I'll use silver for an example,
mhm,
where people may have been building shorts and,
yes, kept getting whopped out.
inexperienced traders are going to put their stop right over this high.
Right. And get
And,
stopped.
it was a magnet, took it out by 10 cents.
Yes.
So, I tell people to let their stops breathe so they're not victims of this, and
Hmm.
maybe use at least one daily ATR above an important swing high and below an
So for
important
me,
swing
like if I
low.
were to get short silver, now my silver short, I did gold, but would have been right on that day that you just pointed to where those people got
Yeah,
stopped.
right.
But if I had shorted it before, my stop is on the close. So that's be a new high on the close because of
Okay.
exactly what you're talking about, that intraday stuff. They can
That's
work
a
you out.
great rule.
So
That's a
even if
great
I
rule.
were short silver coming into that day,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten stopped there because it has to be on the close.
All right. And some people wait for more than one close.
Yeah,
So, so that's a great rule. So the close is the most important because you don't know what a candle is going to be until it closes.
that's right.
You can
So
anticipate it. I've lost a lot of money anticipating how a candle would close.
me
But
too.
yeah, so looking ahead here, so you're looking for a spot to buy bonds, and I assume you might be looking for a spot to buy the market down the
NASDAQ in
road too.
particular, yes.
Okay, so uh NASDAQ actually much stronger pattern. Could this be what's emerging? Is that NASDAQ is going to lead, and the Russell even looks better. It's showing some relative strength, and it's been the laggard for years now, Jason. Could it be time for small caps?
I don't see why not. I mean, the commitment of traders has been showing, and it hasn't been published because they had some kind of hack or something that went
Oh
on.
yeah, yeah. We can't
Um,
even count on that anymore.
no, you can't. Which all my positions have been half sized for the last 3 weeks because I need that data. But um, up until that point, it was showing that where people were most short was Nasdaq.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can call coincidence if you want, but to me, that's why the Nasdaq outperformed to the upside. To me,
Okay.
it's just that simple, and I see it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Across different sectors, not just stocks, but other sectors where the things where people are the most short when the market goes up end up being the things that outperform to the upside. Clearly, because that's where all the stops, that's where all the shorts are getting squeezed.
So tell me what about your mission here at Crowded Market Report, and how people could get involved with you. Why don't you tell me what you had in mind when you did this? Obviously, using a unique contrarian approach, you're teaching people to think about markets differently than most do that want to be just trend followers. So, um, tell us what you do for your subscribers.
So, when Jack's book came out, suddenly a lot of people were sending me messages like on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
asking if I could help them learn how to trade, my
Okay.
chapter, whatever resonated with them, and could I mentor them and could I teach them and all that. And I think, you know, as an old floor guy, that's sort of always been something in trading. You sort of, you know, help the next generation. I had people teach me and help me. And so I wanted to do that at 55 years old. But I said to people, like, I can't sit here and help 200 people at the same time. You know, there's not enough hours in the day. I run a business, I have a family, and it's just impossible. So one of those people said to me, well, what about if I start a web page where it can all be centralized, and then you could sort of, you know, all these people could join and you could do it there. And I said, yeah, if you want to do that, that would be great. Don't count on me to be doing any of that back work. But if you want to do all that back work, then certainly go for it. And he did. And I have a, what is now, I guess you would call it, newsletter. But what I used to, and I still write every weekend, I've been writing for myself for 20 years, this sort of breakdown of where the COT stuff is and what that makes the market look like to me and how I'm approaching it based on that. So I said, you know, why don't you start the web page and we'll distribute that newsletter on there. I used to distribute it. I ran some money for a few hedge fund managers, their personal accounts, for a few years. And I used to send it to them, and they always seemed to like it. And I worked at a big multi-strategy hedge fund for a number of years, and I used to distribute it to the PMs there, and they seemed to like it. So I figured, you know, let's distribute to this guy. And then it's turned into something else, because when he started it, he included a Discord chat, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what that meant when he did that.
It sounds like a place you go to argue.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was, but he started that. So a lot of the people that join get on there, and, you know, I'm on there all day, and, you know, we talk about different markets, and I try to really focus on, I mean, I put in my newsletter what I'm looking to do, what I am doing, what my positions are, what's going to get me into these positions. But I really try to get these people to understand that mimicking me is not really the best way to go about this. I'm hoping that, A, you can use some of the stuff that I'm pointing out here to help you in your process, right?
Yeah.
But I really focus a lot of talking on risk management, you know, things that are really important, right? Position sizing, risk management, discipline, you know, these are the things that are more important, A, than anything else. So I spend a lot of time talking about that stuff. And I spend a lot of time of talking about, use this stuff to incorporate in your process, because trading my process is not going to work for you. People have a hard time believing that, but it's very true. When it comes to discipline, you need to trade what you believe in, not what I believe in, right?
So much of trading is in our heads.
That's right.
And so, paradigms that you have to change. You know, I've talked about it. You know, my problem in trading was taking profits too soon.
Right.
And that's because of my paradigm early on, that, you know, I was raised by, my mother raised us by herself, and there was scarcity. So when you become a trader, you see profits, you go, hey, I'm not going to let that get away.
I think that that sounds like an incredibly intelligent thing to be willing to say. You know, people have to, and they have trouble doing it, but you really, it's like you say, trading is not battling the market, it's battling yourself, right? And so you have to get to know yourself as well as you possibly can, and you have to be brutally honest about it, you know, so that you can find where your strengths may be and where your weaknesses may be. I think that's one of the smartest things I've ever heard. The fact that you get into your mother and how you were raised and all that, and
your
how
paradigm.
that affects. I mean, that's what everything is, right? It all comes down to your mommy, right?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
So I've still cried out for her. Anyway, Jason, really, well, it was great having a conversation.
I actually say that to people, by the way, on my thing all the time. It's sort of a saying we have on my Discord page where, you know, you have a losing trade and you're having a losing period, and people are like, you know, what are you going to do? You lost on this trade. I go, you know what? I'm just going to call my mommy. She loves me one way or the other.
She always made me feel better too.
That's right. My mommy always loves me, even if I lose money.
Isn't the key, Jason, that where we want to get to, and it certainly isn't easy, is easier to say, is that you don't do cartwheels on winners. You don't go fetal on losers, that you want to get to the place that it's just another trade.
And that's all about process. You know, if you have a process and you think that it works over time, then it's so much easier to do all these things, to take your loss on, get stopped out and be okay with it, because it's part of the process. I mean, for me, I've been trading this exact way for over 20 years. And I've always been very good at recording my trades and keeping my records and checking back, because I need to make sure if what I'm doing working, is it not working, what is working, what's not working. I try to eliminate obviously the things that don't work so that I can get closer to the things that do work. But 37% of my trades make money. So that means I'm losing money over 60% of the time. So
Yeah,
I like to get stopped out. Here you go. I'm stopped out. I take my loss. I don't have to deal with this freaking trade anymore. You know, I mean, I
next.
prefer obviously to take profit, but you know, when I get stopped out, I get stopped out. Okay.
That's another key word for in life and as a trader. Next,
Next.
right?
Exactly.
Don't
Next.
dwell.
Next trade. And people get caught up too in the whole thing of, oh, I lost money in soybeans. Well, now I've got to make it back in soybeans. Well, why? You know what I mean? Soybeans don't give a shit about you. Make it back somewhere else. Like, what difference does it make? You know, people get all like, make it so personal, you know? And these are, like you say, these are all the things in our mind that we have to figure out, be honest about, and get over if we're going to be profitable doing this.
Jason, great conversation. Using the word next, I look forward to the next time you and I get together and talk
Love to.
markets and see what's
Anytime.
happening. So I appreciate your time, and you, after you go through an interview with me, you become my trading warrior brother. You're my trading warrior brother, Jason. Like it or not, you're stuck with it. And thank you so much for being here today.
I like it. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jason Shapiro, everyone. And you could follow him at crowded_MKT, like market_report. Good hunting, buddy.
Thanks.
All right.